just being here and John not being here, we kind of went off in a completely different direction so far. I must be the grumpy old man because we can't talk about happiness anymore.
All right, so welcome everyone back to our podcast. We took a hiatus for 3 weeks. We were out saving the world, weren't we?
Yes, we put the high in hiatus.
Yes, we do. I love those pictures online where that says, man, I sure hope my electricity bill isn't high. And then the next picture is Snoop Dogg and Willie Nelson. That's my electricity bill. Anyway, see where you already led us, Wade? That's why we don't introduce you first, man.
Well, I mean, like, I actually probably over that time put the 8 in hiatus.
Okay, very good. So welcome back. I am John. Tom is over there. Tom, how are you, brother?
I am doing well at Asbury, and
You still counting down?
I told my congregation yesterday. I said this is one of 9 messages that I have left. And I said, but honestly, until it got low enough that I actually could count without using all my fingers and toes, I really haven't been counting. But I said there were 2 Sundays in April, 2 Sundays in June, and there's 5 Sundays. I can do the math.
Very good. So is it like senioritis? You have preacheritis now? Is that what it is?
Probably. And I said a long time ago, I said, I'm good through Easter. I said, I give you no guarantees after that. And
Very good.
honestly, I'm not the only one who's made that, starting to make that transition. Folks are, there was one lady, have the new pastor come by and visit me. And it's like, and I'm the one who's listening to it. I'm going, he's not here yet.
Yeah.
It was a voicemail.
Very good. All right, and we didn't get to welcome Wade. Wade, how are you, brother? Good to have you.
Well, thank you. I spent the weekend in Austin, so I'm weird. And,
okay, feeling weird.
Yeah, saw my mom for the first time.
So how awesome is that?
Yeah, she's doing better.
Praise God. Praise God. And then we are joined by our good friend Tina Carter. Tina, how the hallelujah are you?
We're doing great.
Great. Everyone feeling happy?
Yes.
Now that you're here, John.
Oh, cut it out. So we'll probably have a short podcast this week because I was at a district meeting and it ran long and these folks joined in without me. They were going fine. I don't know why they told me to start, but so we're still gonna finish on time. But I did want to share this story with you that I read. I thought, man, that'd be something that happened to me. Have you guys ever ran a GoFundMe page or anything like that? One of those?
I haven't run one, but I know people who have.
Tina, you're shaking your head. Yes. Good experience?
It was successful.
Okay.
It was successful.
So I don't know if you maybe ran into this or not. So there's a story, I think it was somewhere out northeast, but at the onset of the pandemic, some guy felt it in his heart that he wanted to help people, because remember the images of families standing in line at food banks and things like that. So this guy, I think he was a teacher, if I'm not mistaken. He wanted to help families. And so he started a GoFundMe page to help families with food. And so he would make grocery trips and help families. And I don't remember his initial goal that he wanted to raise, but he raised quite a bit. He did a lot of good, made all the, runs himself and, bought food, has all the receipts and everything. And then Uncle Sam comes along and now he has a tax bill of about $14,000 that he has to pay, y'all. I would have never thought about that because as I understand it, if it goes over a certain amount, which I think is like $20,000, then that's when these other rules kick in, and if you're not an organization, right? If you're just somebody trying to do good, you're going to get a tax bill because that comes as income. Did you have experience like that, Tina?
No, we knew about that rule.
Okay.
And so we kept the goal. We cut the donations off before they reach that level.
Ah, okay. See, it's good to know, right? And I feel like that'd be me. Like, I'm gonna try to do some good. Oh, I saw this online. Let me do this, and then not know all the rules, and then I have to do a separate GoFundMe for me to pay for my X bill. But anyway, so keep trying to do good, even though there's rules and things. Still try to find ways to do good. It'll make you feel good, won't it?
Sounds like one of three very simple rules.
Are you suggesting that it makes you happy to do good?
Makes you happy to do good, right?
Especially if you're 36 years old.
Especially if you're 36. So if you're listening, I sent out an article to everyone. I don't remember the title of it. I don't have it in front of me because I'm actually in my truck right now. But the article was something about when is the happiest part of your life, right? What's so funny, Wade? What's so
You
funny?
had to move the camera around for us to know you're in your truck.
Oh, I don't know. You might have thought this is a virtual background. It's not, man. Look, I even have hanging dice there. And
No, your beard wasn't fading out of the picture, so we knew.
Yes. And funny thing, I pulled up here to the district office, and my son cleaned the truck because I shared with him. He cleaned it pretty nice, and he cleared out. There's no masks in this truck. I thought, oh no, I always throw one here, so I had to call Sheila. But anyway, so the article was something about when is the happiest time of life, and this was a small research project, I guess, and they came with the age of, what'd you say, Tom?
36.
36 is the happiest time of your life.
They only studied that age group. So how the heck do they know? Like, they didn't talk to old people. They only talked to that age group.
Don't you feel like they were making some assumptions?
Yeah. Well,
go ahead, Tom.
Well, I was thinking I think when she started the study, she was in her 30s, and actually what the study suggested is being 30 something is better than being 20 something. And I would agree with that.
You didn't like your 20s?
No, I've always enjoyed life. Honestly, I've always enjoyed life except the middle of the winter in Wisconsin. So
okay.
I don't remember my 20s.
No, I was raising kids.
Yeah, me too.
We did now it seems like, before it was like what everybody did, but now it seems like so odd. I graduated high school one weekend and got married the next weekend.
Wow.
And then within 2 years, we had our first child, and then 3 years later, here comes the next one, and then 3 years later, here comes the next one. So that's how I spent my 20s, raising kids, working retail, and going to school. But I was happy.
So how are you enjoying your 30s
now? Hey, I'm still the youngest one here.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I enjoyed my 30s too. I enjoyed my 30s. I think I'm like you, Tom. I'm like, you know what? Golly, this is fun, right?
Absolutely.
And my 40s, I'm in the first few years of my 40s. I think I'll be 43 this year. And
are you not sure? I mean, you'll be 43.
So I know it sounds like I'm joking, but I always have to do kind of figure. And the joke I do tell is my youngest daughter, who's my middle child, we share a birthday.
Uh-huh.
And so, when she was born on my birthday that year, it was like, oh, it's so special. And then when she turned 1, it was like, oh, it's Ashley and John's birthday. And then when she turned 2, oh, it's Ashley and John's birthday. And then by the time she was 3, it was like, it's Ashley's birthday. John who? So I told her, you can have my birthday. So I kind of stopped counting after that. But yeah, 36 being the happiest part of your life. I don't know that I was the happiest at 36.
I remember turning 40, and it was like a switch flipped. And I had the sudden realization that I didn't really care what other people thought of me. And that what I was doing was trying to live a meaningful life. And I remember making that realization and having a shift in the way I felt every day after kind of absorbing that. I definitely had a shift in satisfaction, and I would say happiness, because I wasn't chasing happiness. I was chasing meaning then.
I
And,
had a similar experience. It wasn't really at a particular age, I don't think, but it was the moment when I didn't care um, that I was out in public in shorts, socks, and Crocs. And somebody said, "Why are you dressed like that?" I said, "Because I don't care. I'm too old to be caring about stuff like that." And Richard Rohr,
and Wade was 8 years old when he went out like that.
right? Some of you guys have probably read "Falling Upward" by Richard Rohr, and I think I mean, I'm joking about the Crocs, but there's a second part of life that I think for me began long after 36. That it's not like I'm kind of bitter. I don't care. It's I got more important things to worry about than my personal happiness. One of the questions I was getting ready to ask when John interrupted us was what is happiness? I mean, what is that?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you can say that for everybody, because it's a different thing for everybody, and it's probably hopefully it's not a very tangible thing after a while.
Eric Weiner wrote The Geography of Bliss, and that is a great book. He actually studied happiness and talks about how it's viewed in different countries, and it was lovely. But one of the things he says is that happiness is a ghost. You can't really chase it, and if you do, you end up being unhappy. It's a byproduct or a side effect of a life really well lived. And I like that concept. I think that the people that are chasing happiness often end up really miserable.
Well, and that's hard, right? Because, you watch too much TV, and the TV and everything else tells you that you need to be happy. And as a matter of fact, we have what you need to be happy, right? Just come get it, come buy it, come purchase it. You might have to buy another one in a few years, but we have it and we're selling it to you. But isn't there a freedom both of you talked about, and I'm sure Tom, you would probably affirm something similar, that when you get to that point, I just don't really care. Maybe there's better language for that, but I don't really care what other people think. People say that all the time, but you can tell by their actions and what they do that, yeah, you still kind of care. But there's a freedom for your soul, really, when you get to that point where you're like, no, it doesn't really bother me, right? No big deal. There's a freedom there that you can't know on the other side of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what sometimes we can help people understand, the freedom of not caring about people, but caring about opinions or wrong assumptions, or what are people going to say or think if those kinds of things. And Tom, what do you say?
Kind of going back to pursuing happiness and being unhappy, because it was just yesterday I was with my 92-year-old dad, and when I'm with my dad, it's simply we're together because there's not any ongoing conversation. You really can't talk about the future because he doesn't think in those terms. You can't ask the questions about the past because he doesn't remember those. And so yesterday was just being with him, and we were watching a basketball game on ESPN. But it kind of comes back to what you were saying, is you see something and you want it, and when you don't get it, you're unhappy. And it's like, I'm watching this game, and then there's KFC, then there's Burger King, and then there's Papa John's, and then and all of a sudden I'm thinking, I'm hungry.
Mm.
You know,
That's right.
and it's all because of what I'm seeing in front of me. But the moment I stop seeing those, is like, I get home and Ellen is asking, what time do you want to eat? And I'm saying, I don't care, because I'm not really hungry. And so, there's things that make you satisfied because they feed your soul. And there's pretty much everything else. And I've learned, in my mid 60s, to really, especially because of COVID, I've learned to enjoy being right where I am without making plans to do the next thing. In fact, the most enjoyable times I've had have always been, I don't have a lot of plans and a lot of things that I have to line up and get done. It's just, I can be there, I can read, I can walk, and I can enjoy.
Hmm.
That makes me happy.
Very good. And so, think about the article. And then as I was reading that one, going through my news feeders, everything I saw over the weekend, the story about the United States, the oldest living person passed away. She was like 115, I think. She lived in North Carolina, I believe. Right. And so, going on that long, thinking, well, how long would I want to live? And if I was my happiest at 36, well, why in the world would I want to go to 60, 70, or 115, right? So anyway, the idea was, this pursuit of happiness, like you said, is probably the wrong pursuit. So from the standpoint of our faith in a risen Christ, what is then the pursuit, right? If happiness is a ghost that we shouldn't chase, then what defines happiness for the Christian heart? What are the things that sort of define who and what we are, or what we get out of life?
My knee-jerk reaction is presence.
Like Santa Claus, or
No,
You're funny, man.
thank you.
You're welcome.
no, it is. It's being in the presence. I would call it being in the presence of God, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's just a contemplative, solitary activity. It's also done with people, and it doesn't necessarily mean that that it's done in worship or on a church campus. It's just being with people who are being with God and watching God work. And I mean, you guys know that the best thing that we get to do, I think, is watch people like change and transform in big and small ways. And I don't think that, I think we're uniquely positioned to be able to see some of that, but I don't think that we're the ones who exclusively experience that. I think you experience that to the degree that you're able to sort of step back and recognize that what's going on around you might be, I don't know, supernatural. And it doesn't have to be like earth shattering or big. It can be small. And so I think for me, it's presence, and I find that if I'm of a certain mindset, that I can experience that with anybody, anywhere, and even my dog. So to me, I think I don't even know if you could call it a pursuit. It's just I think it's just a way of being.
Just
For
like
me,
in the moment. Yeah.
I have such a bias toward action that for me, it's when I enter the stream of God's justice rolling down like waters, when I can enter that work, that stream that God is flooding into the world, and participate in the work in a way that glorifies God and doesn't draw attention to me, for me, that's the sweet spot of happiness, of being able to participate in the presence the way Wade was talking about. But for me, in an active way, where I can see God working out justice over the long timeline. And God lets me play in that work just a little bit.
You know, I was thinking, and it's kind of funny as both of you were talking, the same image came to me, and then it kind of got a little bit more focused, and it was kind of a surprising image. When I was in Richland Center, Wisconsin, I had the opportunity to work with the freshman football team. And we were really bad. I mean, I think we won one game or something like that. But there was this game that we were playing out of town, and the kids on the other team were huge, and I think in the end we got drubbed. But the part I remember about that makes me smile was the kid that one of the kids that I had been working with, who was, he was the kind of kid that if you were, wanting to win, he's the kid you want to keep on the bench. But in that game, he was in the right place at the right time. He made an interception, and I'm looking at that, and it brings me great joy to think about that particular moment when one of the kids I was working with had a highlight. It may have been the highlight of his life. It may be one of those moments he'll remember. I certainly will. And there's some joy in making a difference or being a part of somebody else's special moment. And whether it's, working toward justice or seeing that transformation, I mean, it's really, really a cool thing that happens.
So in a way, all three of you have suggested, maybe in different ways, that part of happiness, if we could just use that word as a catch-all for the Christian heart, it really involves not only our connection to God, but to other people. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
Those special moments of their life, or those transformative moments of their life, or even their just life that you have with them, right? And that goes, I didn't preach on it, but I mentioned on Sunday about the Emmaus story, and that's kind of that story, right? They walk with Jesus, they don't even realize it's Jesus, but when they sit down and break bread, right, their eyes are open. And I mean, how much does that speak to how important it is for us when we break bread together? Like when we, when Wade takes us all out for steaks or whatever else, and we can see the presence of God within the eyes of one another. Right? That's part of the happiness or the contentment of our life together. Seeing how God is working in other people, right? So yesterday during the sermon, actually for 2 weeks, I talked about it. The Barna Group put out a survey result that they did, and they asked Christians what they missed about in-person worship over the past year, right? And the top three, the first one was communion. The first one was visiting with people before and after worship service. And the third one was a live sermon, right? From somebody live. And okay, that's fine. But I was more interested in the bottom part of the list. So when I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, I said, yeah, we miss communion and we miss hearing words, sitting down and chit-chatting before worship, and that was something to celebrate. Well, yesterday I talked about the bottom part of the list, and what Christians said they missed the least was corporate prayer, Bible study, small groups, right? And one of the options was corporate worship, period, like being with the church, period. And it's like, and then we wonder why so many people feel disconnected. And we wonder why so many people say like they feel like they have no happiness, whatever. Well, it's because what kind of community are we nurturing that people feel like parts that they can miss the least are the parts where we're actually like really living out our faith together. Yesterday, I called it chit chat, chit chat before and after service. That's great. But if we miss that more than we miss praying together, and what does that say about us and about, kind of what we become or whatever? So
that makes me feel smug. because
What's that?
we're doing a sermon series right now called Encountering the Ancient Ways. And we're going back and saying, and we've attached it to, you know, if we want to be who God's called us to be here at St. John's in this place, yeah, we got to be about meeting people and doing this stuff. But the whole idea, you can't give away what you don't have. And so we're giving them about 6 weeks of, here's some things that you could be doing. And within that, there is 2 or 3 things that you should be doing.
Mm.
And if you're not, if you're not, or we're not, then we're going to have a difficult time. And so far it's been great. They've liked it, and they're doing it. So
one of the things, and I was having a conversation with one of my young people, he's 19, 20 something, and my lay leader, and it was interesting. The young person is looking at what other churches is doing. He also commented about, you know, having seen like 3 or 4 messages before he even comes to church, and I was already thinking about this anyway, is that if it's about a message, or if it's about, hearing the right kind of prayer or whatever, if the worship experience, the community aspect of gathering is about hearing a good message and hearing the right kind of prayer, and, you know, just going through the list, then, you know, then you can probably get most, if not all of that, through YouTube. I've heard some great TED Talks that are very informative. I really enjoyed them, but there's got to be something a little bit deeper, or I don't know how to say it, but there's, and you used the word disconnected, John, but there's something that has to be community building that I identify with this particular group, that I am known and I know real people and experience life in a deeper way. And the ongoing question for us as pastors, I think, is how do we bring people into that kind of community? And I like to use the word connection, but there's it was interesting. I was listening to something where they replaced the word disconnected with lonely. And that's a much more powerful word. It's not, I'm just simply disconnected, I'm lonely. And if I'm disconnected in church, is what that means is when I am surrounded by the people of God, I still feel a loneliness. And how do we move people from loneliness or disconnection to community and an identity that says, I have value in this place?
That's powerful. Yeah, because I don't want to invite you to a worship service, right? I want to invite you into a worshiping community, right?
Yeah,
it's something
absolutely.
we do together. And we acknowledge, I know people who are like, I'm not really a people person. I get nervous. I have social anxiety, things like that. I think that's fine. And as a community, we can figure out how we can best, serve and be with someone who may have those kinds of fears. But at the same time, there's still that sense of, all right, but this is who we are, right? And, we can walk with one another in ways that we can't do by ourselves. But I appreciate, that's a good word, Tom,
I would circle back to, or I want to circle back to this idea of presence, because I remember having a conversation with Tina. Do you remember the time we had coffee right before I went to seminary?
No.
You said a bunch of stuff that I like latched onto. I had asked you what the main thing I needed to remember when I went to seminary was, and you told me Sabbath. Yeah, we talked about.
I thought the main thing about seminary is C is for clergy.
C equals MDiv.
That's
yeah.
Right.
But at some point, and I think it was you, and I think it was at that table, we talked about the vows.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was you that told me, I used to think that presence was about attendance.
Mm.
And and what grew out of that for me was the presence is about, I guess the church word for that is discipleship.
Mhm.
The presence is about kind of what you're talking about, encountering God on so many different levels, and being open to that, and being able to see that, and to be looking for that. And you know, I think everything that we've talked about, whether it's worship service, justice work, um, potluck, um, if you pay attention, presence is there. I used to go walking with Tina all the time, and that was often my time of really that on those at those times, knowing that Christ was present in those conversations, um, and that's just one of a billion different things. And so, you know, we're sitting here in the almost perfect podcast, and I keep thinking, and we're almost happy. I think there's a parallel there.
Well, especially when presence can happen in the absence of comparison or envy,
Right.
where we can be with one another and really value the other without thinking, well, why is that happening to them? And not me. I think when we can really embrace presence and leave aside comparison or yearning, or um, that's when we can really encounter joy, happiness, contentedness.
Just be happy for who that person is, right? No matter what they have that you don't, or what they're pursuing that you aren't. Just, I mean, we're all on such different journeys, and I hate using that word because I feel like it's been played out and it's kind of cliche at this point. But I mean, we're all going somewhere and different tracks, or whatever. And like, why in the world would I compare who I am with who you are, right? I
Mhm.
mean, that there's apples and oranges, right? A lot of times we need to be careful with that. So, but yeah, so finding happiness of life through connection uh, with God, and even communion with one another, right? I think that's our word for the day, how we connect with each other. That's what makes kind of what we do here fun for me, right?
Hey,
I
Joe,
thought about doing yes, yes, sir.
is your finger okay?
Oh, you yeah, man. So talk about being disconnected. I disconnected from a piece of my finger. Yes, Saturday. My wife asked me what happened. I said, I don't know. All of a sudden I said, ow, and then blood was coming up. So anyway, I will heal. I will heal. But
I care about you.
I appreciate that, man. I am happy to know that you care about me. But in all seriousness, you know, our faith, I tell people all the time, my favorite book of the Bible is John, because in John, it's the abundant life that Jesus has. I mean, abundant life sounds kind of happy to me, right? And then my next favorite book is Ecclesiastes, because Ecclesiastes to me is kind of like the old guy telling the young guy, dude, chill out. We've all been here before, right? Love God and live your life, right? And that's kind of how I do. And I feel like maybe there's a positive message, a truthful message in there that adds joy, true joy, not just happiness to our life, that comes from our faith that God might actually want. So
I tell people
anyway,
in recovery that Ecclesiastes is a really almost perfect fourth step,
Mm.
which is
ah,
a fearless and moral inventory.
Mhm.
wow, there you go. Yeah, I'd never thought about that before. That's pretty awesome. All right, so good conversation. I'm hopeful that anybody listening can kind of think about where they are, and you know how they've pursued life, and they've tried to fill their days with happiness, and what that's looked like for them, and how our faith actually has something for us to strongly consider with how we live, to finding whatever it is God wants us to have. So with that in mind, any final words, Tom?
My final word is, I know my wife will be happy to see me very soon,
Mm.
since we're
As
running a little bit late.
as were we. Any final words, Tina?
Nope.
Very good. Wade, anything else?
No, I'm good. I've got your finger under control, so I'm good.
I'm gonna take off the Band-Aid and make you look at it, man. All right, so thanks for listening, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. We are glad, we are happy that you are part of the Almost Perfect family. And if you ever have anything you want us to talk about that we can try to figure out a Christ-like response to, let us know. Send us an email, send us a message, whatever. But until we can get together again, Wade, Tom, Tina, always good to hear from you. Thank you so much for the gift of your time.
Thanks, John.
Have a
Thanks,
great
John,
rest
for
of the week.
showing up.
My pleasure. I'm happy to do it. All right. God be with you.